Welcome into Long Shots, the world's #1 golf betting show on VSiN and VSiN.com, the sports betting network. I'm Brady Kannon along with Wes Reynolds. Nick Henyon and Triv McKenzie are at the controls. Karina Howe and Des Schultz in support from down below as we get ready to take you through the next hour of golf betting conversation. And Wes, I'm licking my wounds a little bit. I was feeling pretty good with Matthew Wolff at 135-1 and a 3-shot lead going into Sunday in Detroit last weekend, but it was Rochambeau, Bryson DeChambeau. He ends up continuing his red-hot play. 4 straight top 10 finishes coming in. He ends up with a 3-shot victory and his 6th PGA Tour victory of his career.
Yeah, good call by you, Brady, because Wolff really, since he won the 3M Open last summer in Minneapolis, hasn't really gone that well. Hasn't really shown a lot of mettle, but certainly did last weekend. 31 combined birdies and eagles for Matthew Wolff, which led the field. Shoots 20 under par. You think that's going to be good enough, but it was not, unfortunately, for Wolff. And DeChambeau 6-1, and I mentioned, hey, this guy, I'm going to look like a fool when this guy wins by 5, and he won by 3. I just did not want to bet him at 6-1 in a 155-player field where birdies are plentiful, and you just never know. It's one thing to bet that price in like a tour championship where there's only 30 players in the field, but went with 23 under and led the field in driving distance, 350.6 yards. That is the highest category ever for a PGA Tour winner. The previous record was one Tiger Woods at 341 yards at the, I believe, the 2005 Open Championship at St. Andrews. DeChambeau actually hit, of his 56 tee shots, because discounting the par 3s for all 4 rounds, of his 56 tee shots, 47 of them were 300 yards or higher, which was the most by a PGA Tour event winner since J.B. Holmes at the Phoenix Open back in 2006. So led the field also in strokes gained putting, drive for show, putt for dough, and he took that literally and ends up winning by 3, and now is going to take this week off after 4 straight weeks of play, and now once we get to the major implication segment later, now the favorite for the 3 majors here in 2020.
We've seen the favorites fare pretty well in the restart. We saw Webb Simpson win at the RBC Heritage, Dustin Johnson at the Travelers, and then Bryson last week, and then also Tyrrell Hatton and Simpson finishing in the top 10 at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. Some long shots have come close and threatened Kevin Streelman at the Travelers, but ultimately, since the restart, it's really been the class players coming through.
Yeah, by and large. Berger was a little bit of a bigger price, I think around somewhere 70, maybe as high as 80-1 to win the Colonial, but he was in really good form, and you could see that a good result was coming. You may not have seen it that week. I certainly didn't, but yeah, class players are winning and coming out, but we've had a real mixture on the leaderboard, like you were saying. We've had the chalky players, but we've also had longer guys get up there in terms of making bids for this tournament. Certainly, we saw that in Hartford with Streelman. We saw that a little bit at the RBC, and then a bunch leaderboard really last week. Some guys that hadn't been up there in a while, like the Troy Merritts of the world, played very well.
Victor Hovland has played all 4 weeks in the restart. He has 2 top 25 finishes and 2 top 15s. Conversely, Wes, a lot of times you want to ride a hot player. This week, are you maybe going against him, citing possible fatigue in what will be his 5th straight week playing on tour?
I thought about playing him, but I just did not like him at 25-1 when I think maybe you could get a little bit better next week, assuming he doesn't win this week. We're playing that game again, like I was playing with DeChambeau, where I was like, well, I want to take him at 15 or 16-1 to win the Memorial. But that's assuming he doesn't win here. Now we're not going to get 15 or 16-1 to win the Memorial. So that's the game I'm playing a little bit with Victor Hovland this week at least.
I thought Matthew Wolff would have the mettle, the word you used there, to hang on in the final round. He's an NCAA champion. Of course, he won the 3M Open in Minnesota last year. It just didn't turn out that way. And I remember waking up in the morning after the 4th of July and seeing that Matthew Wolff was already 3 over on the day. And it was not a good start to optimize Sunday, and ultimately Bryson DeChambeau gets it done. Congratulations to him. This is Long Shots, the world's number one betting show on VSiN and VSiN.com, the sports betting network. Wes Reynolds and Brady Kannon with you. Jeff Benson of Circa Sports will be our guest shortly. We'll bring him in to break down the Workday Charity Open at Muirfield Village. And about Muirfield, Wes, of course, this will be the first of 2 straight weeks at the house that Jack built, the same venue Jack Nicklaus owns and designed the property at Muirfield Village in Dublin, Ohio. And Jack has come out this week saying he expects a tougher test of golf. It's been 4 straight weeks of the restart where we've seen an average winning score of nearly 20 under par. And last week, the cut fell at 5 under. I can't remember seeing something that low in a long time. Do you think this will be a tougher test when we get to Muirfield Village this week?
It will be a tougher test than I think last week. I think this Workday event is going to play easier than the Memorial will play, simply because greens are a little bit slower. They're going to run about 11 on the stimp instead of about 13 for next week. The greens usually at the Memorial, usually the fastest these guys see on tour all year. So it's going to be a little bit lengthened. And look, they're trying to shape the tee boxes and the pins a little bit different. They're going to grow out the rough more next week. But they've got 8 rounds of tournament golf in 11 days. So these guys can really tear this course up. So the grounds crew is going to have to be on their game at Muirfield Village, and I'm sure the Golden Bear will hold them to that high standard.
What do you think about the difference in putting speed? You talk about the greens for the Memorial typically being some of the fastest on tour. The report is this week that they will be slowed down a little bit. Mm-hmm. Do you think that brings more bad putters into play, or do you think the best putters are going to succeed no matter what the speed of the surface?
Well, I'm going on the thesis that it's going to bring some more shaky putters into play with a couple of my plays this week. And it also opens it a little bit more to a foreign contingent, because you see a lot of the guys on the European Tour used to putting on slower greens, and that really registers true in the Ryder Cup. You always see that. It seems like these guys from Europe are just so much better putters than the Team USA guys because they're used to putting on slower greens. So I think it opens it up for a lot of different players.
That's a great point. We see that at the British Open, the Open Championship, which usually has slower greens. And now it is time to bring in our guest. It is the member guest segment here on Long Shots. Jeff Benson is the sportsbook operations manager at Circa Sports. He's also a big golf fan and a golf odds maker specialist. Jeff, great to talk with you again. We've been wanting to talk golf for a while now. Now we finally get to do it. And I want to pick your brain a little bit. Since the restart, what have you been taking away here as far as the golf on the course and also at the counter at Circa Sports?
Yeah, thanks for having me on today, guys. You know, it's certainly nice to have golf back and be able to bet on it and, you know, have some of these Sunday sweats. So, you know, in terms of, you know, what we've seen, you know, here on the course, you know, I've noticed outside of DJ winning that a lot of the winners had previously been in good form prior to the COVID shutdown, you know, including Daniel Berger, Webb Simpson, and Bryson. You know, I think a lot of the talk, you know, coming out of this shutdown was, you know, what did the current form kind of look like, and would that translate even during the layoffs? So, you know, I think conversely at Circa, you know, it continues to amaze us, you know, just the handle, whether it be on the outrights or matchups that we write on a weekly basis. You know, our pools are writing 2 or 3 times the action as before the pandemic. So, you know, I think golf has continued to be uber popular in lieu of the major 4 sports being out of action. And quite frankly, I don't really see that slowing down anytime soon. So, you know, I think people are really seeing how great of a product the PGA is putting out there and, you know, how much fun it is to bet on.
Jeff, you and the team at Circa Sports have obviously not been shy about embracing what you would consider to be sharper action and more professional action, and I think that shows kind of in the odds that you put out every week. They are much fairer numbers than you will see at the overwhelming majority of the places here in town. But do you find that that's still the case, or are you getting a little bit more balance with maybe some more casual, or if you want to call them Johnny-come-lately bettors that don't really bet golf on a regular basis? But look, there's not a lot of options right now in terms of live sports, so they're getting more involved.
Yeah, I mean, for us, you know, we've seen plenty of sharp and recreational action, you know, on golf before and after the restart. However, I would say, for us, our golf pool sees as much sharp action as any book in the world. I think between the limits that we offer and with our theoretical hold on all futures, and especially golf, the price-sensitive bettors who are looking to shop for good numbers have found Circa Sports has the best price on a lot of the golfers. And with the way we move our numbers after we take bets, raising our other golfers to get back to our desired hold while lowering the golfer we might have took substantial money on, I think it creates a unique opportunity to find golfers at all times of the week at various prices. When we open these numbers on Monday, we do so with a 27.5% theoretical hold. As we move to Tuesday, that number drops to 25%, and then as we move to Wednesday, that number drops to 22.5%. So really kind of as the market matures, our limits will go up and our theoretical hold will go down. So Matt Metcalf, who's our sportsbook director, he always encourages people to continuously check the app because you might be able to find a guy who wasn't playable at a number early in the week, much higher later in the week if he doesn't take any money leading up to the start of the tournament, or by the time Wednesday comes and, we've lowered, that theoretical hold, 5% down from the 27.5% it opened early in the week.
He is Jeff Benson, Sportsbooks Operations Manager at Circa Sports, talking golf, and the Workday Charity Open is on the schedule for the PGA Tour this week. Jeff, we are not familiar with this event. This is probably a one-time event as it fills in for the canceled John Deere Classic, but we are very familiar with this golf course where they typically play the Memorial, where they will play next week. When you did your handicap for this event, what skill sets do you see being needed to flourish this week in Ohio?
Yeah, obviously there's plenty of history, at Muirfield Village. Obviously the course is going to play, kind of similar next week. But the setup this week is going to be a little bit different than how they will play the course next week, given that they're going to have different tees and pin positions this week. I think they've talked, at length about, the rough being a little bit shorter and less penal. And then, the greens, like you mentioned earlier in the segment, they aren't necessarily going to play as fast on the stint meter. So, I think with this course, it's a typical Jack Nicklaus design, which makes, the second shot tremendously important. So in terms of, what I looked at in my handicapping and some of the skill sets that I thought were important, I think it's going to be really accuracy off the tee and then consistent approach play. Strokes gained on approach was something I really look for when targeting certain guys, I wanted to bet.
Jeff, kind of going off your own opinion or maybe what you're seeing in terms of the betting behind the counter, any players that look a little dead on the board to you that maybe you're looking to skirt or potentially go against either in matchups or guys that you immediately crossed off on the futures list?
Yeah, personally, I wouldn't really be playing Jon Rahm right now. I think he's really struggled coming out of the break. At 13, 14 to 1, that seems a little bit short for me to play somebody like him in that neighborhood. Additionally, I was surprised to see, Koepka so close to the top of the betting board. When I was looking at one shop around town, he was the co-favorite at 12 to 1. I think that his great performance, at the RBC has artificially lowered his odds. I'm not yet 100% sure that he's all the way back. And I know Matt kind of feels the same way with me there. In terms of, maybe some of the guys we've seen a little bit of early money on, we've seen some interest in Patrick Cantlay. We opened, a number that was a little bit higher. That number's drifted down. I think he's 13 to 1 right now. Obviously, he won, the Memorial last year. And so people are thinking that, his course form, might play well here. And then we've seen some other early money on guys like Mark Leishman, Matt Kuchar, Joel Damon, and Corey Connors, guys who have all been in form coming out of the break.
How about you personally, Jeff, or the book, what have you, both one and the same there, possibly any head-to-head matchups or any futures that you're backing, maybe a top 10 or top 20 finish? Who are you on this week?
Personally, I played Justin Thomas minus 130 versus Jon Rahm in a head-to-head matchup. And then for the outrights, I really targeted guys who I thought had good iron play. So I was able to snag JT at 12 to 1 early this morning. And I found a 35 to 1 on Ricky Fowler. He's been playing better out of the break. I thought his weekend performance last week was really encouraging. I was able to get Mark Leishman at 45-1. His metrics and his kind of fit here at this course, I thought played well. Adam Hadwin, who had a great weekend last weekend, finished top 5. I got him at 60-1. And then I also played Cam Champ at 60-1, he's had 2 really good tournaments out of the break as well.
Yeah, there's a couple guys on your list, Jeff, that are getting some love this week, including Champ and including Hadwin. Those are guys I certainly looked at. Moving on to the majors, and I'll ask kind of a macro question here because, look, now we're seeing that Bryson DeChambeau runs like a 2-5 horse would last week and goes ahead and wins as the outright favorite at 6-1 in Detroit. Now he is the favorite for the 3 remaining majors this year, including the PGA, which is the next on the schedule. Was it kind of when you move odds like that and move him to the favorite role, is it more of a defensive role, or is it more of, okay, there are going to be people that are going to bet this guy anyway, so we might as well not be overly generous with the price?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously a lot of futures is perception and market based. So, with the way that Bryson's looked, coming out of the shutdown, his run of top 10s, the way he looked last week, and the way he's been bet, adding the amount of distance he has off the tee, I think he averaged somewhere in the neighborhood of like 350 yards off the tee last week. It's just something that, you really got to respect him in the market. For us, Matt just moved him to the co-favorite at the Masters with Rory McIlroy at 12-1. And it'll be interesting when we do go up with our, PGA Championship odds, kind of, what number we settle at on Bryson. Because obviously you have to tremendously respect, what he's been doing with his game and how he's been bet in the market.
Jeff, speaking of the PGA Championship, do you know when those odds might come up at Circa Sports? And secondly, do you have a couple, 3 guys in mind that you're looking to get down on, or maybe you already have for the PGA?
Yeah, I would. In terms of the PGA Championship odds, I would anticipate we would have betting odds up in the next week or so for our players here at Circa Sports and Circa Sports Colorado to bet on. In terms of the PGA Championship, kind of looking at Harding Park and who the course may favor, I think the rough is going to be tremendously deep. Watching some of these videos of seeing how overgrown it is, it's just going to make the course play tremendously difficult. I think the greens, are going to be very hard to read, firm fairways. I think the track is going to be a real tough task and one I'm excited to watch. So far the only play I've made was Gary Woodland at 60-1. I kind of want to see, what they do with Bryson. I think his game is a little bit more suited for Augusta, in my opinion. And at the 8-1, 10-1 range, I probably won't be betting him in the PGA Championship. But some of the other guys who might have my interest include maybe a Xander Schauffele, a Webb Simpson or a Sung J M, guys who are very good with their, irons and who, are in good form as well. So, those are the kind of the guys that I'll probably be looking and seeing what I can get in terms of odds.
Jeff, got about 90 seconds here, but I did want to ask you more of a general question because we're seeing with the pandemic more interest in golf betting, and certainly Circa Sports has been kind of the leader out here in Las Vegas in terms of being more creative and more original with the odds in terms of like a lot of the yes-no bets you see and being able to parlay future bets and whatnot. What do you expect that the next evolution is going to be, I guess, in golf betting? We know that there's the futures and we know that there's the matchups that you're going to get every week. Are you expecting to maybe start to experiment a little bit more in some of like the prop markets, the top 10s, the top 20s, what have you, or maybe you're just going to do that for majors, or do you expect maybe to add that to the menu anytime in the near future?
Yeah, I think ultimately a lot of it boils down to technology and, having to do things manually. So as we continue to grow and scale, the hope is that we'll be able to automate a lot of this process. The amount of work weekly that goes into setting up a 157 golfer pool, for example, like this week, and doing yes, no's, golfers to win or not win the tournament. makes it challenging to do a lot of these top 5, top 10, top 20 markets as well. Just long story short, as we're able to build on the software we already use, the hope is to add more markets, as we know our players are yearning for more props and matchups and things of that nature. So generally speaking, the more markets you offer, the more manpower you need to watch these markets. So hopefully with better software and more automation, books in town will be able to add to their golf menus. I can only speak for Circus Sports and saying that is something that we're working to address, and we're doing everything in our power to get to that goal as soon as possible. It would certainly be nice, obviously, to have the ability for some of our patrons to be able to pick customizable matchups, and not just maybe the matchups that are on the screen. And it would be nice, like I said, to offer some of these more expansive prop offerings on weekly tournaments, not just on the majors. But like I said, a lot of that boils down to automating the process. And we're certainly looking to do so, and to do so as soon as possible. Because, like you said, the increase in golf betting here in the last 2, 3, 4 months during the pandemic has really seen a tremendous rise.
Absolutely. Good stuff, Jeff. Thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy the Workday Charity Open, my friend.
Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate you guys having me on.
That is Jeff Benson, and he makes a great point with the golf popularity going through the roof right now. The time is right to open up some additional markets, and looks like he's got his idea to do that as soon as possible. When we come back, we'll talk about Tiger Woods, when he's going to come back, right here on Long Shots. The Tiger Tracker segment now up on Long Shots, where we track Mr. Woods. It is the Workday Charity Open this week, which is the 5th event on tour since the restart, all of which have been sans Tiger Woods. Wes, he's got to show up next week, right?
You would think. He has until Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, is standard on the PGA Tour in terms of when to commit. But I would guess that he would be with it being Jack's tournament and his obvious affinity and fondness and friendship, even though they're considered rivals, albeit in different eras for Jack. And plus, now it has been announced, or it was announced yesterday on Monday, that there's going to be no spectators at the Memorial. Maybe that makes it, I wonder if that makes it more attractive for him to commit, because of the fact that, look, you get out there for the first time, and when you've all of a sudden got fans that haven't been out at these events, players maybe could get a little bit more nervous, even though it's not going to be the full galleries that we're used to seeing. So I would think that he's going to show up at the Memorial, and that's probably going to be the one event, unless he throws a curveball and goes back-to-back and commits to Minneapolis. He's not going to play the week before in Memphis, the week before the PGA, starting in August. So the Memorial may be the only time we see him before we see him at Harding Park.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point about the fans. It was originally going to be the first event where fans were allowed back on the grounds. The Memorial, that has changed. It will be a no-fan event, just like every other one we've seen in the restart. And I kind of agree with you. I think that's maybe an easier transition for Tiger if he is to show up. Fans are going to be rabid to show up and cheer on their favorite guys, let alone a figure of the stature of Tiger Woods. When you don't have the fans there, less distraction, less fanfare, less noise, if you will. And I know that's tough to say. You don't want to say it's a better event without fans, but it might be a little smoother for him to come back in that environment.
I think so, because, look, the one time that we've seen him ever since the break in tour play, and recall that I don't believe he had played since Riviera, did not play any of the Florida events, was the match with Peyton Manning against Tom Brady and Phil Mickelson. He looked very comfortable, looked very good, hit really good shots pretty much all day, looked very lean. I noticed that about him. So I think he looked pretty comfortable, and that's what's kind of surprised me, that he didn't squeeze in an event here early on in June or July before the Memorial, because I thought he looks like he feels pretty good, or at least solid, about his game right now. So I thought he would want to get out there. But look, this isn't a guy that needs for money. This isn't a guy that's playing for FedEx Cup points anymore. He's playing essentially for majors at this stage of his career. He's pretty much accomplished everything you can accomplish. So I don't think he's worried about, where am I on the money list, or where am I on the Ryder Cup points, because if he's in form, he's going to get picked in the Ryder Cup by Steve Stricker, assuming there is still a Ryder Cup.
Well, speaking of the majors, you've got the Memorial next week, then you've got the 3M Open in Minnesota, then the WGC FedEx St. Jude in Memphis, and then the PGA Championship. If he only plays one time before a major, is he truly in tournament golf shape, and would he be an immediate red flag for you to maybe go against?
I don't know if I would go, if I'm going to necessarily take a stand against. I'm probably not going to play him for the PGA. I actually like him a little bit more. Look, the Masters is the obvious choice of what major Tiger is going to win, because he's been so successful there, and that's why his odds will be shorter there than they will in any other major. But I could maybe see him a little bit, and I didn't think I could. I could maybe see him at the U.S. Open in September, because Winged Foot, and I mentioned this with Danny Burke on The Edge, he's such a grinder, and that course is going to be so hard. And the USGA is going to have 3 extra months to trick it up.
You think they're paying attention to this minus 23 under stuff?
Absolutely, they are. They want even par to be the winning score, maybe even over par. So, look, Tiger Woods is still the greatest grinder in the history of the game, and he is able to play good golf when the scores are higher as well. So I could see him for the U.S. Open, and I think he'll have more play going into the U.S. Open, because he's going to obviously have had the PGA. It depends on where he stands in the FedEx Cup standings. If he plays a couple of those events,
right.
The Barclays, the BMW leading up to it, he'll certainly have more form. So, yeah, I'm probably not going to be betting him for the PGA, but I would take a little bit of a look at the U.S. Open.
Well, I believe you can get down on that right now at our friends over at the Westgate Superbook, and that's the best odds for the upcoming majors. Tiger is 20-1 to win the PGA. He's 16-1 to defend his title at the Masters, and 25-1 at Winged Foot, West. So maybe after the show, you're running over to the Westgate. We'll come back and talk about major implications on the show here, long shots, see what's going on for the PGA. Wes is also going to update the European Tour for us. Keep it here on VSiN and VSiN.com. A course that rates the highest in each factor is Bali High Golf Club, a tropical golf course paradise located on the Las Vegas Strip and in the shadows of some of the most famous hotels in the world. At Bali High, designed by award-winning architects Brian Schmidt and Lee Curley, you will find hundreds of mature palm trees, lagoon-like water features, beautiful bunkering, and a stunning clubhouse home to Sealy Restaurant and an indoor-outdoor patio experience and event space. The course offers Bluetooth technology, caddies upon request, Jell-O shots, model-like beverage cart staff, VIP service from curb to course and back again, high-quality food and beverage, and a par 3 challenge where you can double your money with one swing. The stunning Bali High Golf Club, located in the heart of the Las Vegas Strip, is a golf jackpot, and there are many reasons why. Play today. To learn more about the Bali High experience or reserve your tee time, call 888-427-6678 or go to valleyhighgolfclub.com. That's BALIHAI golfclub.com. It is our major implications segment where we take a look at the upcoming major championships on the golf schedule. But before we get to that, the European Tour has returned to action in the way of the Austrian Open. And you have a couple of thoughts and a couple of picks, Wes.
It has returned for the first time in 4 months, March 8th being the last time the European Tour was in action at the Qatar Masters. This field, a little bit, obviously a weaker field because most of the high-profile guys are stateside right now. Joost Luiten Kannon is the short favorite at 6-1, rightfully so, considering he has a win here. He's never finished worse than 7th here in 5 appearances, hence that's why he's 6-1, and plus the weaker field this week. But they start a 2-week swing in Austria. They're going to be in Otzenbrugg, which is about 75 minutes away from the capital city of Vienna. So Austrian Open starts this week at the Diamond course at the Diamond Country Club. Jeremy Pern, the designer, one of the better golf architects in all of Europe. Par 72, 7,458 yards. Actually has 2 par 3 island greens, not just one like you see at TPC Sawgrass. So very much you want to find greens in regulation, and the greens are bent POA, very smooth. Played 3 guys this week, basically for interest. Rickard Karlberg at 40-1. Scrambling is pretty important here, and really making up strokes around the green. And who's a better scrambler on tour than Richard Karlberg? He's number 1 in scrambling. So I took him as a shot. He's actually a guy that got his European Tour card back in qualifying school last winter. Had to hole a 50-footer on the 18th hole to get his card back for the European Tour, and did get that. So got to think he's excited considering the grind he had to go through to get back on the European Tour. So I took him. Antoine Rosner has been a popular tip this week for those of us that play the European Tour. He ranks top 25 in all the categories off the tee, distance, accuracy, strokes gained off the tee. He's also a pretty adept ball striker. 9th in GIR, 13th in tee to green, 28th in approach. So thought he fit the profile. And then Robin, I'm going to try to pronounce this right, Robin Skio Siegrist, who has 2 top 10s this season, an 8th in Mauritius and a 3rd at the Vic Open in Australia back in February. Really dead solid straight hitter, top 10 in driving accuracy, 8th in strokes gained putting, and he's at 80-1. So Karlberg 40-1, Rosner 50-1, Skio Siegrist at 80-1. And if you missed those, I have those on the Twitter machine at Wes Reynolds 1.
All right, very good. Let's shift back over stateside. The PGA Championship will take place on August the 6th at Harding Park in San Francisco, California. And Matt Eumann still sitting on Webb Simpson at 40-1 to win it, and Jordan Spieth at 50-1. Anybody, I know you have a couple of plays in pocket currently. Who is in your portfolio right now?
Yeah, I only have 3, and I have DeChambeau at a very good number and found him at 25-1, obviously, before he went all Incredible Hulk on the PGA Tour here the last 4 weeks. So, look, he's going to be at 10-12, 15, maybe at best right now. So you've kind of missed the number at least. Xander Schauffele still hanging there at 25-1. And I know Jeff Benson mentioned him, and I know Matt Youmans is likely to be on Xander Schauffele. That's a guy he plays fairly frequently. And California guy, granted this is in Northern California, not in Southern California, but I think this guy could go very well. I think he's certainly got the pedigree. He's contended in majors before. He's just looking for that breakthrough. I already have Paul Casey at 50-1. He's only played like one time. He played in Hartford and played okay, not great, but Casey is a guy with experience that I've mentioned here before. Went very well at the match play, which was held here years ago. That was won by Rory McIlroy at TPC Harding Park. So those are the 3 I have. I'm probably going to be looking to add a few more as the weeks go by. But a lot of this with major futures, and I talked about this with Gil the other day on a numbers game, it's basically timing the market.
Sure.
Because, look, you're going to be defensive and you're going to move odds based on results. So you get a little bit of that prisoner of the moment where you want to jump on a guy before he drifts down or shortens downward. And then at the same time, you can take advantage of good prices, whereas guys that maybe not are firing out of the gate, like I'm looking at somebody like Rahm at the Masters, who I still like, even though he's not played well to start out the season or the second half of the season, if as it were. He is a guy that, you know, maybe if I can get him at 18 or 20-1, I don't know if he's going to be up that high considering he's still the number 2 ranked player in the world, and number 2 ranked players in the world in majors don't usually go off at 20-1. I would hope so, but he's a guy I still like for November, and that's what you're looking for. You're looking for some of these guys to drift up instead of just taking the hot players after the prices have already moved.
Well, I have Dustin Johnson at 18-1 to win the PGA. I like his track record in California, both at Riviera and at Pebble Beach. Jordan Spieth has a great track record at Pebble Beach. I have him at 50-1. And Wes, you're going to like the name I added this week, or this last week, I should say. Sergio Garcia at 100-1.
I'll like it, but Matt Humans won't.
That's right. He won't.
That's the
He'll scold me for taking Sergio.
The bane of his golf existence is one Sergio Garcia. But I can't argue with that. I think, look, the ball striking has been really good for Sergio, and he's still, even at his now a little bit slightly elder age, is still one of the best drivers of the golf ball on the PGA Tour. So he still gains stroke off the tee, still very straight, and still pretty long for a guy that's approaching 40. But if he gets the putter going, that's the bugaboo with Sergio. If he gets it going, though, he's very dangerous.
Well, he's been playing pretty well, and the putter, you bring up the putter. I love the way he has performed at Riviera and also the WGC Mexico, which has a very similar putting surface to what they have at Harding Park in San Francisco. He also finished third back there a long time ago in 2005 when Tiger Woods beat John Daly in a playoff for the WGC title there at Harding Park. Got Sergio at 100-1. Not a bad number on the old man.
No, not at all. Good scoop by you. And look, don't be afraid to take a bomb in some of these events. Bombs win majors sometimes.
We're coming back with our plays for the Workday Charity Open when we return here on Long Shots on VSiN and VSiN.com, the sports betting network. Welcome back to Long Shots. Brady Kannon and Wes Reynolds with you. It's been a pretty good run here in the match play segment, Wes. We've had some very near misses. Xander Schauffele and Colin Morikawa. Matthew Wolff last week. You, of course, cash with DJ. The matchups have been very successful. Let's get to Matt Humans' plays for the Workday Charity Open. This will be the first of 2 weeks. They play at Muirfield Village. And I know Mr. Humans, as far as the outrights to win the tournament, is on the tournament favorite. Justin Thomas, another one of his favorite players, got a good number on JT at Circus Sports at 13-1. He has Brooks Koepka, real good number there at 19-1. His other favorite player, Xander Schauffele, jumped on him at 22. Ricky Fowler, who I think is an interesting play this week, and if you get the right number, I think it's worth it. 38-1 there on Fowler, and then Benny on at 82-1. Any reaction to those five?
Yeah, I can't really argue. I didn't play it, but I can't really argue with Thomas. We do, as you'll see in a moment, match up on a couple of these, but Fowler was another one I considered, and I kind of like him next week at the Memorial. Hopefully he doesn't go off. Hopefully for Matt's sake he wins, but for my sake, for not including him, that he doesn't. But he's got two runner-ups at the Memorial Tournament and has always been pretty solid here. I like the way he played last week, even though he really didn't contend. I think
the argument, it was against a weaker field, but I agree with you. He wasn't shabby. He's got a great track record on Nicklaus courses, and you know, he's really good buddies with the Nicklaus family. And I think that's a wise decision to maybe look at him next week because Ricky seems to do better on the faster putting surface.
Yeah, I agree, and I think he ended up tied for 12th last week. I shortchanged him on a previous appearance. I thought he was like 20th, but gained strokes pretty much across the board, not only off the tee to green approach, was positive in terms of the putting. So some good things maybe are lurking here for Ricky Fowler, who constantly, especially myself and Matt, constantly disappoints us that he should win more than he does. And he's a likable guy, and I would like to see him break through and get that major at some point.
As far as the matchups for Mr. Humans, he's got Koepka at even money over John Rahm, and then back to Ricky Fowler at minus 120 over Patrick Reed.
And I also played that matchup, Fowler over Reed.
Okay, and I know you also played Brooks Koepka on the outright market as well.
I did, and look, I wish the number was a little bit better. He and DJ were my top two guys at the Travelers. DJ ended up getting home, as Koepka did have to withdraw because his caddy actually had contracted or had a positive test, rather, for the coronavirus, Ricky Elliott. But now he's back. I just think he's in a good frame of mind here. Now, he hasn't had success here at Muirfield Village. I think his best finish is like a 31st, pretty nondescript finish, but he looks like a guy motivated to get a result here. I think the I only care about the majors thing is very overblown. And I think the being that he had that knee surgery and that he was obviously uncomfortable to start the season in terms of how he was playing. And I think it's no better evidence of that is the putting. He was 208th in strokes gained putting before the stoppage in play. He was losing, I think, about 0.71 strokes per round on the greens. Since the restart, where he's played a couple times, he now rates fourth. Just since the restart, not overall for the season numbers, but he's gaining over a stroke per round on the greens. He's starting to roll it better. And he really has spoken about not only how his body feels great, but he simplified his game. And he had a meeting with his team and his agent and his caddy and his physio and the whole team Koepka, if you will, and said, let's get back to what we're doing and let's get back to what got us here and not overthink things and not trying to play too perfect and just go out and simplify matters and play golf. And he also might have a little bit of motivation, too. His fellow Bash brother and his good buddy DJ won at the Travelers, where he had to withdraw. And then now Bryson DeChambeau is the toast of the town,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Remember just about 12 months ago when it was Brooks Koepka that was toast of the town? It was like, how many majors is this guy going to win? This guy's going to win double-digit majors, and how soonly we forget. And look, Bryson rightfully is being the talk of the town right now, but how soon we forget about this guy. So I did like Brooks here at 19-1. I also agreed with one of Matt's plays on Benny On. Benny On loves Nicklaus courses and just goes well. He's got 5 top 10s in his last 15 worldwide starts, 2 top 5s at the Honda Classic, including earlier this season, which is PGA National, another Nicklaus design. And he was a runner-up here, actually lost to Bryson DeChambeau in a playoff back in 2018. Putting is usually his drawback. He's a good ball striker. He's a good, solid, all-around player. But
there's where we talked about the slower putting surface maybe helps a guy like Benny On.
Yeah,
he's had success here before, even with a normal putting surface at the Memorial. I wanted to talk about a couple of your selections that I've seen on a lot of cards this week, and I think they're very intriguing. And that's Joel Damon at 100-1, and then also Gary Woodland at 50-1. Talk to me about those two guys. Woodland traditionally has not been a great putter, although since the restart, his flat stick has been on fire. Joel Damon is really an up-and-coming player. For a couple years now, he's had success. And I took a hard look at both of those guys. One of them's on my card, one of them is not.
Yeah, Joel Damon I'll start with first in around 100-1 in that range. Top 15 on the tour in both strokes gained approach and strokes gained tee to green. He's also top 25 in off the tee and also in scrambling. 8 top 20 finishes or better in his last 14 events, dating back to the Shriners Hospitals for Children Open right here at TPC Summerlin in Las Vegas. This just looks like a guy that is going to break through at some point.
100 seems big for him.
Yeah,
right?
he's playing really good golf.
Maybe he should be 65. I think he's that good right now.
Yeah, he's playing really good golf, and I think is in a good place. He just needs that one real good performance to, I think, give him the confidence that he can win out here. Woodland, half the price, 50-1. Hasn't set the world on fire since he won the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach last summer, but he's got a couple top 5s and 6 top 10s, including one earlier this year at the Honda Classic, PGA National, Nicklaus design. Just the ball striking stats, the greens in regulation, the strokes gained approach, the scoring average. I didn't think he was getting talked about enough this week, and I think he can go well.
Yeah, and Jeff Benson mentioned he had him for the PGA Championship at 60-1. Of course, he was in the finals against Rory McIlroy at that match play in 2015. Wins down the street at Pebble Beach. Could be a sharp play for the PGA Championship. We'll get to my plays now. In the outright market, I match up with Matt Humans and took a shot on Justin Thomas. I think the stats across the board this week, this guy is a deserved favorite. I don't like to bet on the tournament defending champ, and and not that Cantley is. We've never played the Workday before. Cantley's the defending champ at the Memorial. I stayed away from him. Another guy that was a relatively short price, and I match up with you on this one, is Justin Rose. Has tremendous success here, and I like to use corollary courses. Justin Thomas has won the WGC Bridgestone up the road at Firestone Country Club. Justin Rose has had tremendous success there. Also, another guy on my card, Bubba Watson, has had great success at both the Memorial and at Firestone. Adam Hadwin just had the price is probably a little low on Adam Hadwin. He should probably be more like 65-1, but I think his stats, again, really match up well with this course. Had a great week last week. And then I took some longer bombs on guys that have had success. I talked about corollary courses, the WGC Bridgestone at Firestone. I also like to look at how these guys have done at the Masters. Jack really designed Muirfield Village with Augusta National in mind. And then also, the Masters has a corollary with Riviera. You get a lot of the same winners at the Genesis Open in Los Angeles as you do at the Masters. And Russell Henley, Max Homa, Adam Hadwin, they've all had a lot of success at Riviera.
Yeah, and you talk about corollary courses, Brady. That was kind of my bomb for the week was Johnny Vegas at 150-1. Johnny Vegas is a two-time back-to-back winner at the RBC Canadian Open, which is played in Glen Abbey in Oakville, Ontario, just a little bit outside of Toronto. So he's a guy that's gone well on Nicklaus designs at Glen Abbey, and also has won at the American Express when it was the Bob Hope Classic, which has a couple Nicklaus designs in the Rhoda. And, Woodland, another guy, has won at the Barracuda. Now, granted, Barracuda up in Tahoe is more of a it's a Stableford scoring, so it's more of a birdie fest up there, but still similar course corollary. So I went with you on that. And then back to your Justin Rose. I'm also on Rose this week. I'm interested to see what's going to happen here, because I thought he got out to a good start, even though he missed the cut at the Travelers. He's made a lot of changes in his game, not only the equipment that we've talked about in previous episodes of Long Shots, but also has recently split with his longtime swing coach, that being Sean Foley. And all of his PGA Tour wins are with Sean Foley. He's won 10 times on the PGA Tour, and he's been with Foley for like 11 years. But he's taking control of his game, I think, and I think it's easier for a veteran player, and I think Justin Rose has a good self-inventory of where his game is. So I don't think this breakup with Foley is going to necessarily be a negative. That's not an indictment of Foley. That's more of a pro Justin Rose thinking that, hey, I'm going to take a full accountability of my swing and my game and everything, and I know what I need to do to get back in the winner's circle. So I'm trusting the player here.
He's a real horse for the course, and I thought 26-1 was a pretty decent price on a player of his caliber, the number 13 player in the world. Want to ask you real quick before we get out of here, Shane Lowry in my head-to-head matchup, plus 120 over Billy Horschel. Billy Horschel does not have a great track record here at the Memorial at this golf course. I think he's finished top 10 just one time. But Lowry, a course corollary again, as a former winner up at Firestone.
I was just going to mention that. He's a guy that won against a big-time field, actually, a few years ago. Before he won the Open Championship last year at Royal Portrush, that was kind of his introduction, at least stateside. He was well-known in Europe, but introduction stateside in terms of the fact that he can play with the best in the world on any given week. So I don't dislike that matchup play of Shane Lowry here.
And, of course, you match up with Matt Humans on Ricky Fowler at minus 120 in a head-to-head matchup over Patrick Reed. We're going to stay at Muirfield Village next week in Ohio when we return on Long Shots. It'll be round 2 at the house that Jack built. And we'll bring in our friend from the Golf Channel, Will Gray, will help break it down as we transition from the Workday Charity Open to the Memorial in Dublin, Ohio. This is VSiN and VSiN.com, the sports betting network. Good night, everybody.